simple profile about your home's components. After crunching your smart meter data, the algorithms will provide you with specific recommendations where you can find energy leaks in the home and save money on your utility bills. On average right now, our users are annually saving $1,209 in their energy cost. And of 240 slots that are available for Atherton residents, we currently have 32 people signed up. So I want to encourage movers and shakers like yourselves to help us spread the word, because we would like to have as many of those slots taken that are available to residents in town, that they can take advantage of this free online software. Nobody will come to your home. The data is held securely and confidentially, and we even have a support person that can assist you if we uncover any unusual configurations within the home. So I encourage all of you to visit our website at terra.org/highenergy, and using your PG&E username and password, sign up to participate in the program before it ends on April 22nd.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A couple of points. One, as Davina has mentioned, you need to have a smart meter, and two, you cannot have solar. However, there is supposedly going to be this program for lower energy users and even people who have solar. When is that going to come to fruition?
I'm not aware of it, I'm sorry to say.
It's going to supplement your program.
If you'll share any additional information, I'll be happy to research it and report back to you.
And the additional $15,000 that we spent was basically to, in part, to amplify our program with regard to water usage, travel, and also things like pools and spas. Can you explain what some of that was about?
There is a component added to the program that looks at water usage in the home, that the resident can add their Cal Water Service account information, and it will download the water information. It even asks in the profile about the percentage of the lot that is turf irrigated, about if they have any water features such as jacuzzis, fountains, ponds, pools in the property, and we'll look at that water usage. And if the program, in analyzing that information, appears as though their water use is excessive, it will even direct them to California Water Service to complete a free water audit that they offer.
I see, but that again is only for the 31 or so people that have signed up. You can't just sign up for that one component.
That's true. You have to go through the entire program to be able to utilize all the components of it.
Thank you very much. And thank you for coming and spreading the word.
I might add that we have put a notice in our Athertonian that is being sent to all of the residents, and so you'll get notice about that and instructions on how to do it. I urge everyone to sign up for it. I think that the small number of Atherton residents who have signed up so far has resulted in enormous kilowatt savings, something in the nature of 60,000, 70,000 kilowatt hours already, which is huge, and comparatively speaking. And we just need to bring our overall usage down. Of all the cities around us, Atherton is at the top of the kilowatt usage, and so this is a way to really not only save yourselves some money, but also to save the environment also.
Right. The average California home uses 6,000 kilowatt hours, and Atherton ranks at the top with 4 times as much usage per household.
Since we have a question, and is there any other questions up here? Let's since it's closing, let's ask the question take the question from the.
Davina, thank you, excellent presentation. Why do you exclude people that have solar panels? It seems to me some electricity usage could be saved even if you already have solar panels.
Well, we like to say that the mantra these days is to reduce before you produce. So we encourage people to use our program before installing solar panels. Simply put, you have a different type of PG&E meter. You don't have the smart meter, so the software does not have access to the history of your usage to be able to put it through the algorithms to provide recommendations. In initially starting the program, we were told by PG&E that they were going to provide their solar users with smart meters. But along the timeline, the 2 years that this has come rolled out, that seems to be on the bottom of PG&E's priority at this point. So eventually, solar people will have smart meters, but unfortunately not within the time frame that the year's grant funding from the California Energy Commission is available to us.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you for coming and letting us
Thank
know
you.
that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bill, could I just add something?
Sure.
We have not done nearly as good a job on this as we should have. The statistics prove that. Los Altos Hills, out of 280 slots, have 60 residents signed up. Portola Valley, out of 150, have 66 residents signed up. And as good a program as this is, it is for high energy users. And so far, with the 40,000 Actera grant and $15,000 of Atherton funds, even with the annual savings of $1,209, that doesn't even cover the cost of the grant and the money that this town has spent on the program. So that tells you that we have to do a lot better. And we can, because just after speaking with Debbie yesterday about this, she put out an email on the Atherton Green Yahoo group and got 3 new listings. So get the word out there. It's really a question of people understanding that this program is available and ends exactly 1 month from today.
So I might add, since we're talking freely about this, is that there was lots more marketing programs that were in progress through the Environmental Programs Committee, which was suddenly and unexpectedly suspended.
That's an item that's on topic for later
So
discussion.
if that had not been suspended, there would have been much more outreach, and the $40,000 grant that Atherton really did get from the CPC was leveraged with Actera and 4 other cities to provide really a benefit of about $250,000 in benefit. So I'm hopeful that we can continue on.
Well, and unfortunately, in November, on November 11th, PG&E also changed their website, which threw a glitch into our program that suspended people from registering for about 5 weeks. And we discovered after the holidays, when people got back and started looking at their bills, we had a tremendous increase in signups since January. So I'm hoping to take advantage of the next 30 days and enroll as many people as possible in town.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for making us aware of it. Let's move on with public comments, and we'll keep them public comments without a whole lot of discourse.
Denise Kupperman, 74 Atherton Avenue. I'm here to remind the community that the Atherton Dames are sponsoring the annual Easter egg hunt, which will be on Saturday, April the 7th at Holbrook Corner Park. And we usually have a very good crowd, and it's a wonderful community event. And I encourage everybody here to participate. And if you'd like us to help us distribute the 6,000 plus eggs, we encourage you to show up at the park, maybe around 7:30 or 8 o'clock. We provide coffee and donuts. And if you're so inclined to help us stuff these 6,000 eggs, please contact any one of the Atherton Dames. Thank you. Hope you all attend.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, seeing none, then I will close the public comment section. Next item on the agenda is a report out of closed session. At the end, we had 2 items. One was a discussion with the labor negotiator. There's no reportable action, and the other was fulfillment of the action item that the council took to do the performance appraisal on with our city council, which was a successful appraisal. So thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
So next we move to city manager's report.
You have my written report. The only thing I'd like to add is on page 12 of 17, there's a construction and permit summary. From now on, we'll plan to illustrate where we are against the budget. That's all.
Oh, good, thank you. That'd be very helpful. Okay. Any other questions on the city manager report from council? Okay. Okay, so next, items 8 through 21 are the consent calendar, and any member of the council or the public can ask for one of these items to be pulled from the consent calendar, whereby it would be actively discussed and then voted on separately. So we'll start here with the council and find out if any council member would like to discuss pull any of items 8 through 21.
There's nothing I want to pull, however, there are some typos that when we approve it, and they are purely typos, and item number 16, I'd ask that we approve that item with correction of the typos, and I'll give them to you. 16. Also, in my packet at least, I didn't have the full Exhibit B to the access agreement with regard to Felton Gables. I didn't think it was critical, so I didn't pursue it. But I thank you, Paul, for all the work that you've done on this.
Vice Mayor?
So I'd like to just pull number 19 for comment.
Okay.
I have a comment, I don't get pulling, but I have a comment on number 18. I will be happy to make it a moment, if that's acceptable.
Sure. On number 18, if I could just mention, I was going to give a verbal report on it, so I was going to pull that so that everybody was.
It doesn't have to be on the regular agenda because you're supposed to give us a recommendation, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you want my comment?
Yes, sir, I would like your comment.
Yeah, I would just say on 18 that one of the search agencies that are listed in here has been involved with one of the other towns and did not get a very satisfactory report. So I would just encourage you to check that out carefully.
I think we're going to discuss that.
Thank you.
I made my comment, I guess, about 18. We need to talk about that. But I also wanted to say on 21, the Felton Gables Gate thing, that Paul Quinlan deserves a great big, he did an awful lot of work on that. He did all the legal documents so Connors could review those. Took a minimum amount of Bill's time on that. Took a lot of Paul's time and discussions with Felton Gables folks and so forth. So, Paul, thank you very much for all your help.
I was going to actually pull 21 to talk a little bit about the speed humps because I'd like input from staff. And I'll pull 18 so we can have that discussion. Anybody in the audience like to pull a specific item? Currently, we've got number 18 and 19 and 21. Okay, seeing none, then let's.
I move approval of the other remaining items.
May I have a motion to approve everything?
Second with the typos in item 16 corrected.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. So we'll move on to number 18. Number 18, there was a task force that was assigned at the last meeting to go through a series of proposals that were submitted to help us with the search for the executive recruiter. There were 3 firms out of 4 that were solicited that responded. Councilmember McKeithen, myself, and an interim city manager went through these and also took input from other communities with regards to what their experiences were. Upon coming up with a final discussion items and looking over the proposals as well as the personal interviews that Councilmember McKeithen and I had, we can go through into more detail at your request. We've selected the Bob Murray executive search firm to support us. They'd given us a number in a proposal, and in the discussions had also offered understanding of where we are in our process, and had agreed to be a little more thrifty in their proposal to us based on the activities that Teresa had already started. And so we're recommending that the council approve the use of the Bob Murray firm, as well as give the opportunity for the city manager and the city attorney to negotiate a final agreement with them. Are there any questions?
So you're saying that the figures here shown cost-wise will change then?
Those figures were for the retainer fee, and those numbers will be lower. We'll come in under that number.
Could I add just a few things?
We're talking on number 18.
No. What number?
Oh, the 17,000.
Is going to come in lower
Yes,
than what he proposed?
yes.
Okay.
That firm does offer a 2-year essential money-back guarantee. It does offer a great amount of flexibility with regard to how we want to conduct the search, as well as input from the council. It has conducted the search of one of our eminent former employees, and I think that speaks for itself. They also, one of the big questions I had was the number of searches that they're conducting, 9 for city manager and assistant city manager. That was some concern. And as I had thought, they responded and said it cuts both ways, of course. You know, we are busy, but they have 4 senior staff, and Bob Murray would actually be doing the search on behalf of Atherton.
Plus, you'd only be doing 5 searches.
Yes. And he also indicated that, you know, there are not really a lot of city manager candidates out there that are unique. A lot of the same people apply over and over again for these positions, but that's what he's looking for, someone uniquely qualified for the town of Atherton. He also does essentially a quasi-complete background search. Not all the other firms did that, and that's included in the price.
For the final candidates.
Yes.
Yes. Not just one.
No, thank you. He felt the most comfortable with our timeline, but with the understanding that what we want is someone who's good, not just anybody. Bill and I had talked about, is it worth spending this money in the final analysis based upon what we saw? And I would have to say that this council and the public knows my feelings about conducting our own search and how I think we've ended up with reasonably far better results when we've done the search ourselves than when we've had outside firms do them. But we've already begun that search on our own. This firm will allow us to become as involved or uninvolved as we care to be. And thus we will be driving the process together with a professional. And I think given the importance of having a good city manager with longevity, we hope, it's well worth the $15,000 to $20,000 it's going to end up costing us to explore all avenues. And that includes using an outside search firm, which we have not actually used before. We had used the other 2 companies who made proposals. And that is part of why we came to this determination.
Do they think that they can meet the time schedule that
Yes.
was looked at last time?
They said they could, but, you know, that a lot depends upon the availability of the finalists. A lot is done by Skyping these days and by emails, and though they are located outside Sacramento, that should not be an issue at all.
They also indicated that if the clocks, they're not going to force us to make a decision, and they understood that if they give us candidates and we decide to reject them, that we start again, and then we'll continue, and they'll stick with us until that's done. They do want input from every council member, which we felt was very important, that even though we've already determined what our criteria is, they would like to have individual conversations or a group conversation with us, with all of us, so everybody will get a chance to speak with Bob. You know, we looked at really what some of the firms gave us a firm process. These people recognized that we had already started down the path and wanted to capitalize on what we've done. The background checks, working with the lead executive at the firm was important to us. So we felt that, you know, looking at a series of things, the quality of the firm, the types of people that they're recruiting, the types of cities that they've recruited for, and the success that they've had there, as well as, you know, the lead executive and his willingness to work with us, both price-wise as well as process-wise. It was very, very important. And they also indicated that, and it challenged us, that while we have 30-some-odd resumes, they felt that the resumes that we'd received, and we heard this from several of the firms, were probably the same ones. They could tell us who they were because they applied to every city manager's job. That when you have an executive recruiter involved, they know the city is doing a good job and trying to take the right step forward, and that eventually the placement will actually be made, and more people will actually apply for those jobs as opposed to we just ran it ourselves. So we believe that it's a prudent recommendation to move forward. We believe that we'll get a higher quality candidate and a higher quality candidate pool to consider.
Thank you. Sounds like you've done your homework.
Yeah, it really does. Thank you very much. And I did have an opportunity to review 2 of the proposals that Teresa had at her office, and Bob Murray's proposal was not one of them, and I wasn't pleased with either of the other proposals, so I'm very happy that you chose Bob Murray.
I have to tell you that that's
So-
sort of where we were
Yeah.
until we finalized our interviews, so
Right.
I think we're consistent. Bob Murray, I believe, one last point, was a city manager.
Um,
His lifetime,
so-
which I think is helpful.
Where is he located?
Freeport, which is right outside Sacramento.
Oh, good, that's pretty local. Good. So shall we make a motion? I'll be, we're gonna have public comment?
Yes, since we pulled it. Are there any public comments on our selection of the proposal process that we initiated at the last council meeting and hopefully are concluding today?
Yes, I'm Bob McLean. Just curious about, in the cost structure, did you talk about travel and that sort of thing? Because I've been in that business, and that's a part that can get away from you unless that's considered, depending on how far the reach is for candidates and the kind of entertainments.
All of the, for the audience and for fellow council members, all of the firms felt and offered, and it's standard practice, that if they're flying somebody in, they'll make arrangements or they'll let us make the arrangements, but the cost of bringing in a candidate for a final discussion is ours. They do a lot of telepresence so that you can go today to many sites and you can do a telepresence site discussion so that they keep the costs before they come to the final selection at a minimum. But flying somebody in here or having them drive in and spend the night in a hotel, that would be extra, and we had already approved a fee for running ads and covering those costs in a earlier council meeting. But good question, thank you. Any other questions here? So we'll bring it back for a vote. Can we have a motion on number 18?
I move that we accept it.
I'll second.
All right, let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the motion passes.
Thank you.
So next item is consideration for the support of the League of Cities legislative activities, number 19, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I just pulled that because while I understand that sometimes timing is an issue for our representative to go and make a vote to the League of Cities on issues, to the extent that it is able, those issues are able to be brought to council for discussion and for council to be able to weigh in on. I would like that to happen, but otherwise to do what this ordinance or resolution says is fine with me. I just want to add that to the extent possible, that if timing is not an issue, that it is brought to council for discussion.
That's fine.
I think that's a very pertinent addition. Do we have any further discussion? Bill, should we just have the discussion notes cover that, or do we want to make a motion? Should we make a motion to add that to this approval of this item?
Mr. Mayor, the recommendation is to ensure a timely response and action. It's recommended the mayor respond. I think conversely, if timing isn't an issue, then per se, it will come back. I think that was
implicit.
Abundantly clear.
Okay, all right, so can we have a motion then to approve? Oh, sorry, thank you. Any public comment on item number 19? Seeing none?
I move we authorize the mayor to respond to requests from the California City for legislative advocacy as deemed appropriate by the city manager and the city attorney.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Go on to number 21, which is the Felton Gables. I pulled this not for anything that was in the agreement, just there's the paragraph down at the bottom of the letter to Russ Peterson, and thanks to both Russ as well as Paul for their efforts, as well as Councilmember Carlson for getting involved in this. So the speed humps, I guess I'd like to hear something from our public works people with regards to the situation. There's been discussion that perhaps this was something that had been discussed earlier and that Menlo Park was interested in doing or had already approved previously. Have you had a chance to research this?
Yes, actually I hadn't, because this is something that occurred a while back, but Steve Tyler is here and he does recall what that situation was, so I'll ask Steve to respond.
Yeah, back at the beginning of 2009, Menlo Park began to put together a Safe Routes to School program with a lot of improvements down Encinal Avenue, which also included the signal light, bicycle lanes, a lot of the improvements in the school. And one of the things they proposed doing, one of the 11 or 12 items, were placement of 2 speed humps or tables between the stop sign at Laurel and Encinal School. The neighbors of both the residents of Atherton along Encinal Avenue, as well as the Menlo Park neighbors, were polled or sent a survey to see how they felt about that. And I can't remember the exact numbers. I believe it was 16-2 not in favor of the Atherton residents, did not want those speed tables out there. The reason being the noise from the garbage trucks and the gunning of the engines going up and over them. They didn't think it was a good idea. The Menlo Park residents actually voted in favor of them, but it was decided by the Menlo Park group at the time who were proposing the Safe Routes to School project that one city did not overrule the other, so they would not put those in the project. So they were thrown out. So, just to make you guys aware, council aware that that is what happened. That was in April of 2009 that those polls went out.
If I could add something, this is pertinent to what the Transportation Committee asked to be looked into with regard to some information we received at our last meeting from a resident on Stockbridge. Apparently there is a new kind of speed hump that is sort of mobile. You just bolt it down. We don't know what the costs are. There's some indication it's less noisy. It's being used in Redwood City, and what we asked be done is that Mike contact Redwood City, find out what the cost is, what the history is, how efficient it is from a stopping, speeding, as well as noise and other concerns, whether or not that's the sort of thing that Menlo Park or another jurisdiction would be able to or desire to become and split costs with us. And report back to the Transportation Committee, not only with regard to Stockbridge, but we said this is an issue that arises throughout the town, and we'd like to know not only with regard to this new engineering, but are there any other engineered speed bumps or humps that we should be looking into that we haven't since we last looked at this, because it's an issue that involves the entire town. It comes up fairly routinely.
I'm happy to hear that. I think that makes all kinds of sense. I hope the Transportation Committee will take. This arose during a discussion with 4 or 5 people from the Homeowners Association, Felton Gables, and there wasn't a commitment we would do it, but asked that it be looked at, and it sounds like the Transportation Committee is gonna be taking on a broader look at this whole thing that would fit the bill.
And what I would do is, with your approval, is report back to the council on what the findings were, so that everyone is aware of it.
All the,
Can we ask Paul Quinlan if he wants to add anything on this?
Is it public comment?
Well, you're an expert witness.
Okay. Hi, I'm Paul Quinlan, and I live in Maple. And I would also like to thank Jerry for his efforts. Even though I do negotiations for a living, when you do it about something sort of personal, it's good to have a third party sort of keep you from crawling all over the table when they ask for certain things. So I think it was very helpful to have a calm presence. And also, this is an issue that I know Councilor McKeithen and Councilor and Jim have also been involved in the past, but cognizant of the Brown Act, I didn't want to start talking to too many people. On this point in particular, this was one of the few things that they actually asked us for. And so with the help of the city attorney, we tried to draft it in such a way that the city was not bound to do anything other than look into it. So even if Mayor, you have concerns about even the reference to the traffic humps, I mean, you could also change the letter to just say, ask to look at measures that might reduce speed on Encinal or something like that, if you don't want to sort of mention the speed humps in particular, or we can just leave it as, look into it. But this was one of the few things that they actually asked for, so it would be nice to sort of give them something as well.
But the request was for traffic calming methods as opposed to speed humps. And since speed humps seem to be almost overwhelmingly voted against by the Atherton residents that live on the street, do you believe it would be detrimental to goodwill if we change the word to traffic calming devices as opposed to speed humps, so as not to go?
Yeah, that's what I mean, if it's that particular mechanism that is sensitive, I think it would be fine to talk about something a little bit more generally. That way, they get the letter that says we're going to look into it, and we haven't stepped on any toes here, because even at the meeting they volunteered that the Atherton people had all voted against it. Okay. So they're aware that
well, I think
the difference between the city, and they did not ask us to. I was waiting for them to say that's the condition, but they didn't go there.
Okay. So since the whole initiation of the bringing this to conclusion, which has been going on and discussions have been going on for a while, was due to the fact that we need to have a safe route to school. We're keeping an eye on the kids riding the bikes from this area over there. It's appropriate to say traffic calming devices and tie it into the safe routes to school, continue the safe routes to school. I've got all sorts of support for that, but there's not support for traffic humps per se on that street from Atherton.
Right.
So I'd like to have at least the words changed with the consent of the rest of the council, because the people that I've spoken with on Encinal still aren't necessarily crazy about traffic humps on their road.
Right, and so my recommendation would be take out the reference to the traffic humps, talk about traffic calming, or however you want, you're comfortable with the words, and have that as what gets looked into. I think that would be, that's okay for
Yeah, it may be that they come up with traffic humps, I don't know.
And I think that your idea of adding something about safe routes to school in that, being the reason for that, might be a selling point of here on too, depending on what the transportation committee comes up with.
Right.
But in the letter, I'd be a little careful about mentioning safe routes to school and things like that, because of the fact that, one of the points that we made to Fountain Gables was, at one point they wanted the access limited to people going from one side of the park to the other, And I think we felt that was a little bit unfair, because you could live on the other side of the gate in Atherton, and you're not necessarily going to school, but you should still have the right to access the gate.
You have to access our park, yes.
Right.
And that's a big plus, and I saw that in the agreement, and thank you very much on behalf of many of my neighbors who specifically asked for that access.
Right, and so that's why I'd be a little careful about getting too hung up in the school part of it, because then, then you get people saying, well, then you don't need access going the other way, and that's not what we're getting at.
Right. Thank you again for all the work you did on it. I know it's been several months of discussions with Russ and that group, and everybody's got the right intentions, but it can be difficult to deal with sometimes, you know.
Right, and I'd also like to thank them for their part in it, because, you know, they're not fast, but ultimately they got to the right answer without having to have their arms twisted too much.
Could I just say a couple things? I want to single out Russ Peterson, who president of the Homeowners Association, because he has the same problem we have here, you know, trying to get support for changing that agreement. And Russ was cooperative from day one in trying to work with us on this. The other thing I wanted to mention is that longer term, there may be a better solution to this. Where that current gate is, it's out there in the back corner. There's a potential safety issue in terms of
tracks.
Yeah, and there's a stub street, Sussex Lane, I think it's called, that's off Felton Gables Drive or whatever that street is, that abuts the park fence. And one of the things maybe we might want to think about, maybe through Park and Rec, is someday having a gate at that location, which would, if the library's in the park, would be a very ideal way to access the park for people from that direction. So I look at this as kind of phase one.
I think that's good, and but we have to be cautious and careful with regards to the parking situation, which they pointed out here, which is, I think, is a very a real situation, especially with Little League and things like that. People would park there because it might even be closer.